What's up guys, it's Chris Majestic, and today we're going to be checking out the BenQ HT5550. So priced at $2,700, this isn't from BenQ's high-end line, but it is a step up from the HT3550. So what do you get for $2,700? Well, you get a nice color accurate image with a great lens, good black levels, much better installation features, and great clarity. So in the box, you get the projector itself, a lens cover, a backlit remote, and of course the documentation for the included 3-year warranty. And the first thing you'll notice is that it has a black body, which is much different compared to the other BenQ projectors I've reviewed on the channel. It's also a little bigger, being just over 19 inches wide and almost 14 inches deep. You'll also notice it has the lens position in the middle, which looks nice. The lens shift control knobs are the only controls you're going to find on the top. Both the focus and zoom controls are positioned around the lens, and on the back you'll find the control panel along with all of your ports. So it's got an Ethernet port, optical out, infrared input, 12-volt trigger, 3 USB ports that can be used both for charging or media, 2 HDMI 2.0B ports, RS-232, and an analog audio out. I can definitely say I like this design better than the less expensive BenQ projectors. Even though it's bigger, it has a nice premium look to it that fits better in a dedicated home theater. And speaking of dedicated home theaters, that's exactly what this projector was built for. So it has 1800 lumens, impressive color accuracy covering 100% of DCI-P3, a nice glass lens, dynamic iris, 3D for all you hashtag Team 3D guys out there, HDR10 and HLG support, and some impressive installation features such as a 1.6x zoom, a 60% vertical lens shift, and even a 23% horizontal lens shift. So these installation options make it more flexible than less expensive BenQ projectors, allowing you to mount it right side up on a shelf in the back of your room or even slightly off center. The only thing it doesn't have that I would have liked to see at this price point is a motorized lens for the CinemaScope guys out there. So as soon as I fired this thing up and got some 4K HDR content going, the first thing I noticed was how great the factory settings looked right out of the box, even in vivid mode. This is kind of something we've come to expect with BenQ projectors, and I honestly didn't really want to change many settings. The HDR looks absolutely gorgeous, and it's way brighter than you'd expect to see from an 1800 lumen projector. The dynamic iris does help the contrast and black levels a little bit, but I did find the high setting to be a bit too distracting, so I ended up dialing it back to medium, which was a little more subtle. Now, what I have noticed about the HDR from this projector is that it doesn't look as flat as it does from most projectors, and I think this is both a good and a bad thing. Good because it's brighter than what we've seen from cheaper DLP projectors, but the downside is that it seems less HDR-like and looks more like SDR. Now, honestly, I think this is kind of subjective, but I personally like this approach. Instead of giving you a flatter image with more range, they give you an image that sacrifices a little bit of range for a brighter image with great black levels. Even though it's using the same pixel shifting system that the other BenQ projectors use, the image does look much sharper across the entire screen. So HDR looks great, but what about SDR? Well, with HDR being such a tall task, it handles standard content like a champ. It still maintains good black levels with great color accuracy. So as I always say, I can't do a projector review without talking about gaming. So even though games look fantastic on this projector, it does have a pretty big downfall, and that's the input lag. So using the input lag test that's built into my HD Fury Diva, it measured an average input lag of about 92 milliseconds. I ran the test several times and I even thought something might be wrong, but when I tested the Epson 5050UB, it got an average of 22 milliseconds. I tried changing frame interpolation and a few other settings, and unfortunately I kept getting the same result. This is far beyond my acceptable limit, which is usually somewhere in the 50s, so even though games look really good on this projector, you might want to look elsewhere if you plan on doing any competitive gaming. And speaking of the Epson 5050UB, it is priced right around $2,700 right now, making this a good matchup. So how does it compare? Well, the first thing you'll notice is that the BenQ is much sharper than the Epson, like way sharper. Now, both of them do use pixel shifting, but the BenQ has a native 4K resolution, while the Epson's native resolution is about half of that. So even though the Epson isn't as sharp, it does have a few benefits over the BenQ. First, it has unmatched black levels. Even though the HT5550 does have great black levels, it just can't compare to the Epson, especially with non-HDR content. Now with 2600 lumens, the Epson is considerably brighter than the BenQ, which does help with non-HDR content, and of course makes it a better option for a living room or a multi-purpose room. Another big benefit the Epson has is better input lag for gaming. So as I said earlier, I measured the Epson's input lag at about 22 milliseconds, which is more than enough for most gamers, and is considerably better than the 92 milliseconds I got from the BenQ. Another plus for the Epson is that it has a motorized lens. Not only does this make installation much easier since you can control everything from the remote, but it also allows you to use a CinemaScope screen since it has lens memory. And the last thing I want to talk about is the lack of HDMI CEC. This is honestly one of my favorite features on the Epson, and as I've said before, I don't know why BenQ and Optima refuse to put this on all of their projectors. It just makes life so much easier since the projector automatically turns on or off with all the rest of the equipment, and it even allows you to use the projector remote to control your other devices. Now, what's strange is that the user manual makes mention of this feature, even though I couldn't find it in the menu options. Okay, so considering the HT5550 cost around $1,200 more than the HT3550, how do the two compare? Well, if you like the HT3550, then you'll love the 5550. It pretty much improves on everything that makes the 3550 great. It has better color accuracy, much better contrast, better black levels, and even better HDR performance. Now, with that being said, aside from cost, there are three benefits that the HT3550 has over the 5550. The first benefit is input lag, since the 3550 has much better 4K input lag, which is in the 50s. Another benefit of the 3550, which kind of depends on your room, is that it has a shorter throw. So the 3550 produces a 100-inch screen from just over 8 feet away compared to 10 feet from the 5550. Now, in a dedicated home theater, this really isn't a benefit since you might actually need the longer throw, and the 5550 does have a bigger zoom range, which is helpful especially if you have a long room and you need to mount it on a shelf in the back of the room. And the last benefit of the HT3550 is that it has built-in speakers. Now, this doesn't really matter that much in a home theater, but it is technically a benefit. Alright, so what are my final thoughts? Well, aside from the lack of HDMI CEC and the high input lag, the HT5550 is a great projector for a dedicated home theater. The color accuracy is amazing, contrast and black levels are good, and the installation features are welcome. And I have to say that I was really impressed with the HDR performance. I had a feeling that I'd like this projector since I like the HT3550 so much, but it's crazy how BenQ was able to basically make this an even better HT3550. So if you want a great looking image in your home theater for less than $3,000, then the HT5550 might be your best bet. Alright guys, that's going to do it for this video. Hopefully you found it helpful. If you did, go ahead and make sure you mash that like button for me. Don't forget to subscribe to the channel and hit that bell notification so you don't miss anything. Thanks for watching, and I'll see you guys in the next video.